Hey everyone, before we get into another episode of the Falconry Chronicles podcast, I wanted to give everyone another heads up that the podcast is now a part of the Extreme Performance Outdoor Network. If you haven't had a chance to listen to any of the other shows on the network yet, I highly recommend it because regardless of whether or not you hunt with dogs or not, or incorporate that into your falconry, there's still a lot of good information that can be had from the other shows in the network. They're always working towards trying to further hunters' privileges and rights and fight against people that would try and take those away. And there's a lot of that going on right now. And there's some really interesting information that are in some of these other podcasts that I think you'd be interested to hear because, like I said, there's any type of hunting, whether it's hunting with hounds or just general hunting or falconry, we're all affected by these types of things. So I thought it would be cool to join a network with other like-minded individuals like this and help grow the podcast and grow with these guys. And like I said, I mean, they're a good group of guys and work hard to continue to do these other things behind the scenes as well, along with providing, good content with their shows. So please give some of these shows a listen if you haven't yet. And like I said, if you search Extreme with an X, Performance Outdoor Network on any of your favorite podcast hosting platforms, you can find it there, along with the Falconry Chronicles podcast, of course. And you can also add any of those individual shows as well, because they each have their own individual feeds as well. So anyway, I appreciate you all. Thank you all for your continued support as always. And on to this next episode of the Falconry Chronicles podcast.
Oh, we're gonna have a good season when the leaves fall. But I watched her climb up, and she's hanging off the bottom of a nest, pulling and tearing. It finally got up, and it takes off out of the nest. She chased it for a while, and finally the last thing, this squirrel run across everything and runs down into a knot hole. And she did one of them like Michael Jordan's. Man, he run down in the hole, and that bird grabbed it right at the end and was just hanging upside down by the knot.
Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome back for another episode of the Falconry Chronicles podcast. And this episode takes us back down to Texas, particularly more of the eastern part of the state where a lot of squirrel hawking happens. And Randy Watson, our guest for this episode, is also the falconer who is responsible for bringing me down and getting a lot of episodes recorded from his part of the state, particularly also the one that you heard recently with Gary Brewer and a lot of these other falconers that are into squirrel hawking and other types of falconry that's really prominent more towards that eastern side of Texas. So anyway, special thanks again to Randy for being gracious enough to help make that happen and for sharing his story and some more good talk about squirrel hawking. So anyway, without getting any more into that, we're just going to go ahead and turn things over to this episode with Randy Watson. Here we go. I guess I just want to start off by saying, Randy, I appreciate you, and I'm glad that you hit me up and brought me down here and helped me, do this and stuff, and kind of helped arrange this whole thing. And it's funny, sometimes messages slip through the cracks. I know your initial email was like a year ago, but I'm glad I reached out to you there and got a chance to work this out because it's been a fun weekend. And like I said, getting a chance to sit down with Gary for almost 2.5 hours yesterday and just kind of hang out and meet you all for the first time. It's been pretty cool.
Man, I do a whole lot of driving, so I really enjoy y'all's stuff you put out. I have a whole new respect for what y'all do. Like it's been like shuffling pigs, man. It one after another. It's just like shuffling pigs. You one fall through, you find another person to put in its slot, and and all the way down to I wasn't going to do anything, and we have a fall through, so here I am. So, but I appreciate y'all reaching out.
Yeah, no, it's been, like I said, man, it's been cool, and I ideally at some point in time I will have managed to hit every state pretty much that falconry's practiced in every country, and I still have high goals and aspirations. I hope that I get to hit everywhere, but I keep my expectations kind of tempered. So
I can see that.
Yeah, I'm hopeful that we'll be able to arrange somehow to get like even more guys, it's not like Texas is a small state or anything. So,
well, and the weird thing is most of the older guys, we had discussed it, the fact that just even knowing what a podcast is on some of it, it's like, oh, it's a newspaper article? No. It's a podcast. Okay. So like on the internet, I'm like, what kind of, yeah. No, there is no video. Like, it's just kind of a conversation collecting old stories and stuff.
Yeah, it's kind of funny since the origination of this form of media, like the term podcast has become this kind of like its own thing. And it's, for, like you said, the older generation, like if you know, if you don't, you don't. And it's really just hard to explain to people sometimes that are completely not tech savvy at all, basically, like I said, I'm just happy that people are willing to come together and kind of help chronicle and archive, all these different stories and things, and are willing to share, their stories and stuff with the rest of the world, regardless of whether or not you want to call it a podcast or conversation or whatever. I hate using the other I word, but yeah, man, it's been cool. And, as far as this area goes, I know we've kind of talked some, and, I didn't realize that you lived so close to this, like, I don't know, I guess you can sort of call it kind of like a lake resort kind of area or whatever, but tell me more about this particular area.
Oh, well, where I'm, man, we kind of hit that piney woods. We're right there on the edge of that piney woods. If you go, which you kind of come through it, it's like you run through fields, plains, everything. All of a sudden you hit a wall of trees, and you almost fight I think even Gary mentioned, you almost have to fight the woods back to keep them off of you. Right here on Lake Palestine here, we've got kind of, it gets deep. We're up on the northern end, which is stumps and good fishing. The other end's the jet skis and resorts. There's a couple resorts, kind of Pine Cove's one of them, that they've got a big hunk of land that if I could get into, I'd be flying over there type deal. But no, mostly wetland, and you can find swamps and forests of any sort around here. So a bunch of our places is nothing but hardwoods and river bottoms.
And I'm assuming that, because it's surrounded by, this land surrounds such a big lake and everything, and, you got a big water source there, and of course the right types of trees and everything. I'm assuming that's why there's so many squirrels around here.
Well, yeah. And kind of being on the northern end of the lake, if, maybe we'll go a little later to go hunting. My stuff's a little off the lake, but man, we're surrounded by tributaries coming in it. Just from standing on the front porch here, what we're doing, looking off to the left is the big Natchez River coming in on one side. And then we've got 3 or 4 creeks coming in on the other side. I call them creeks, but you couldn't wade them. Keep on going around the lake, and this whole place ain't nothing but bottomland with a lake at the bottom. So yeah, it's a lot of the low-lying lands and lots of hardwoods. As far as like timber work, you can't cut so far from up to these waterways. So if around here, for the most part, if you find a creek or a river, there's about 100-foot standoff of hard trees to a certain extent from them that are just huge and mature. Positive side is lots to eat. Negative side, lots of holes to hide in.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah, and I'm assuming that's kind of where the other tools come into play for that, right?
yeah. I have yet to strap on a set of spikes and climb a tree. If I can't do it barehanded, I ain't doing it.
Yeah.
So that's where I'm at. I'm too fat to fall.
Yeah.
And I would say that if it was 160 pounds. So
yeah, I mean, I've climbed a tree one time to pull my own Cooper's hawk, and after that experience, the way I describe it to people is like, I think I could probably do it again if I really wanted to, especially if I got a little extra practice in before, but I don't know if I care to ever do it again.
Hey, it's a whole different ballgame. I've watched some of them guys that cut the trees down here, and I have seen them literally swing from one tree to another. And there's a whole lot of trust in something that's you're tied off way above you on something that I have seen break multiple times, and I'm like, man, you really, it's not for me. I'm a plumber by trade. I will go into a 16-foot deep hole and eat lunch before I am confident up high. I don't particularly care to climb something that high.
Yeah.
So Gary kind of, me and him were talking one day, and he's like, man, it took me a long time before I realized, man, you climb up one, smoke bomb it out. By the time you poke around, birds lost interest, and there's another hunt going when you finally get up there. And he said, I finally dawned on me that, man, there's another hunt. Save that one for later. Like, there's one around the bend, and he said, man, I finally got to an age that I wasn't as hungry to chase them. There's another one.
Sure.
So I finally got in on the, there's another one.
Yeah.
It went into a hole. Let's go get another one.
Yeah. So I don't know about you, but like, I mean, have you ever been squirrel hawking like too many other places, or is it mainly just been here in Texas?
No, it's here. Man, to be honest, it kind of has to get started in on how I got into it. Man, I've got an insurance agent that works for us, for the company that me and my brother run. And I had some damage on my roof and had a roofer out that was selling me a new roof, essentially. And he said, man, let me get a hold of a guy and send him down to look at the damage on the roof. And guy come down and looked at the roof, said, man, I can fix that for like $130, something like that. And I said, okay, yeah, get on it, and man, come by, pick the check up. Well, me and my wife had went out, killed a hog. We're in the process of processing this hog out, making sausage, when a knock on the door. I'd done forgot that I'd told him come by and get a check. And so I'm writing the check out, guy standing in the living room, and my wife just casually mentions, well, do you hunt? And he said, man, not traditionally. He said, I've been a falconer for 40 years. And from there I was like, hey, can you fill the rest of this check out? Because I've got a whole lot of questions. So from there, we had, that traditional, falconer to non-falconer conversation. Only mine lasted about 4 hours of just question. And you've met Gary. He stood there and allowed every question and emphasized on the end of them. And I kind of ended with a, hey, come, later on, if you need somebody, I'd love to go. It was kind of end of the season. He said, yeah, I'll get a hold of you. Well, I never heard back. Mm-hmm. But from there, it started going. So you don't have to be a medieval times or work in a zoo. You mean you get to hunt by yourself? And I was looking for something to do. Me and my wife were pregnant at the time. She was pregnant. I was just watching.
Yes.
But we looked around, and I was looking for something. I think kids need to be outdoors. The world's going to give them enough technology to to tell them what to do. There's something about hitting that point that you're just kind of not saturated in your thinking. So I was looking for something to do, and he told me about how you don't have to sit quiet. You don't have to do it at crack of dawn or the crack of evening. And, well, from there, we struck up. I jokingly say I had to damage my roof next year to talk to him again. And finally, by the time he come through and he needed somebody to go with him on a bird he was working with, and had just got her on a roll of dealing with people. And he had a guy flake out, and he called me up, and man, I took the advantage. I'd been working about a year on several hoods. I'd made some gloves, and I didn't know what I was doing, but I'd worked really hard at it because he was the only guy I knew. Well, come to find out, guy's Gary, and I was thinking it never dawned on me at that time. Blind hog will find an acorn. I guess best analogy here in East Texas. Luck comes around from time to time.
Every so often, a blind squirrel finds a nut.
Yep. So, man, he from there we became really good friends. Once he seen all the hoods I'd made and everything, he knew I was serious. And that's about 2 years in. I'd done a bunch of studying on all of him and the actual hunting squirrels around here. So we started going out, and by the end of that year, I built everything we needed to trap and had all my stuff. But as far as really going anywhere, nothing else has interested me really. I hate to be that guy, but the interest of driving 2 hours to go hunt ducks when I'm a woods guy, man. I like the fact that I don't know what's around the next corner. We ended up me and him went to Napa, Lone Wolf in Napa, and I remember being up in like the third floor of the hotel room, and you could just see for 6 miles, and I was thinking, man, this is not home. This is not where I like to be, So I just never had any want to go.
Yeah, really.
Maybe one day, but ducks and flying sparrows ain't interesting me right now.
Yeah, well, I mean, you're kind of lucky in that regard that I've had this conversation. You might have heard a couple of them recently that I've had where it's like, when you're a relatively new falconer, you kind of have these temptations to just kind of try everything but what you're doing and what's easily accessible kind of looks more appealing and this, that, and the other. And I think it's actually worked out well for you that what really appeals to you has already been kind of your thing, and you really haven't had any kind of inclination or, I don't know, for that matter, just desire really at all to do anything but what you're doing. It's probably worked out in your favor.
Well, and to find somebody that Gary is very whatever best tool for the job type guy, and that's me to a T. I don't. We laugh. I've went dove hunting and been made fun of for my shotgun. It is an old 870 that somehow I found that somebody had already spray painted all up. And I remember going out to one of them, just a guy invited me to hunt, and he's telling me all about this automatic shotgun and spent $3,000 on it. And I just remember out there clearing dove, just stacking them. And, he's yelling, "Has anybody got any oil? I need to oil my gun." I'm like, "Man, can I take your limit too?" type deal. It's, whatever works the best is what I want to do. I don't care for frills. I'm going to tear it up anyway. Nothing stays nice forever. So that includes birds and bodies. So
that is true. That is true. Yeah. Well, I mean, I know I would encourage you personally though, to eventually, if you ever get a chance to kind of branch out at all if you have any time off, definitely like try and get out with some of the different, guys from different areas that are doing, squirrel hawking and stuff, not just, here in Texas, because, man, I know my eyes have been open to some degree just in the short time that I've kind of tried to make that a little bit more of my primary focus. Like, man, I know, like, the guys personally that I still have an immense amount of respect for are the guys that squirrel hunt like at in East Appalachian, like Eastern Kentucky and stuff. Do that sometime. Like, seriously, it's the hardest hawking I've ever done in my entire life.
Yeah. If you knew this land, it's pretty rolling hills and flat. Man, I'd hate to know that I could see the bird over across the way, and I've been to West Virginia and stuff where I would hate to hawk in West Virginia. You can literally drive on one side of the road, see a road over there, and it's like, no, that town takes about 45 minutes. We're going to make the way over there. And I'm like, man, I could throw a football over there if I really wanted to.
Yeah, you could just throw yourself down the hill and be there quicker.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like, when I went hawking with those guys, man, it was like, literally we pull up to a spot, and literally every single one of their spots is like 70-degree incline, for like 2 miles, seems like freaking a mile or two, right? And what's funny is, like, for a bird especially that's not already in like really good condition, like, if you want to get your bird fit fast, go hunt with those guys for like 3 days. And like, not only will you have a very increased amount of cardio, but your bird's going to muscle up quick, like hunting in that kind of area. Man, I remember like when I was hunting that red tail that I had, and I remember like going up a hill, and all of a sudden I look back behind me and the bird's like X amount of feet below us already, and so she's trying to kind of ladder up, catch back up and stuff. Gets level with us again, go up the hill some more, and the bird's already back down below us again, And then what's the gut punch is whenever you do get that squirrel kicked up, and then it's always going to be below you. It's like the squirrel's always going to be down in the valley, like kind of below you or whatever. And you see this amazing stoop, right? From the bird sees it, goes down, you'll hear just this amazing crash, amazing stoop. And it misses, and you're just like, you come to the realization, your heart just sinks. You're like, I gotta like go back down there now, and then climb back up again.
Yeah.
Anyway, I mean, the point is like, it's cool. Like, squirrel, like certain areas, certain types of hunting aren't all the same. It's funny kind of seeing in person and getting a chance to hawk like in person, like the differences in what you're doing. The core of it's the same, but like, it's not all the same logistics. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I can see that. I have plans on making a few of them meets, just to see but right now I've got a 4-year-old and hopefully one on the way that, maybe a few years. I think we got one. I've got one bird that I made last season with that I'm running her this, and I've got plans on, knock on wood, that nothing happens, but I'm gonna run her for a couple seasons, try to get through the diapers, something that you can run out and run for an hour and you're not chasing for the next 3 type. Man, my first bird, it was a pretty rough go on my first bird. We had around here they call it a winter apocalypse or snowpocalypse. It was during that big snow, and our most squirrels, but our squirrels around here, you got some that live in the trees and some that live in a nest ball. And I really, just we think that whatever was living in the nest balls
all died
out. It
happened a couple years ago or whatever, kind of up in the Midwest too, man. Like, squirrel population was amazing, and then all of a sudden we had this just huge temp drop and freeze, and then the numbers sucked.
Well, and that I add that to man, I ended up with a bird that big old tiercel. I mean, but this bird, we kind of had kind of a feeling that it was not going to be good to get, from the get go, but in the first casting grasshopper leg, type, I'm thinking, man, this is the one. Gary's like, man, this is not going to be good. You may want to. I'm like, no, let's run him. Might as well get started. Man, I chased that bird. That bird would. I learned a lot from that bird on body language and what a bird's about to do, except for during a hunt. Man, that bird would follow me. I could hood that bird, carry it into the deepest, darkest woods, and I literally could. I could throw the bird up. Bird would watch me for a little bit. If it figured out that I was not going to tidbit it or anything, you could literally watch the whole demeanor of the bird change. The bird would look in all 4 directions, find the nearest pasture, nearest roadway, and that was the direction we were going. And it took me forever to figure out that that's what was taking place. I'd chase that. I'm like, man, we're on something. And about the time I'd catch up, we'd make another big run, and then all of a sudden we'd hit the pasture, and you just watch him do this big circle around a pasture, and all he was doing was looking for a place to move as fast as he could, scan the area, move as fast as he could, scan the area. It was a learning curve, and I learned a lot from him. But man, I'm glad this bird here's actually doing something. So,
yeah, and you kind of strike on something that, I don't know, for a lot of beginners especially is very tough. Is just learning the basics of how to read a bird. And yeah, I mean, it doesn't really matter kind of what the prey is, as far as, it doesn't matter if it's a bunny or a squirrel or whatever. Like, once you figure out what a bird does when it keys in on a prey item, there isn't any really looking around. It's a hard, steady gaze in a certain direction with a little bit of hunching down, and once you figure out the subtle differences between that and looking all of the different possible escape routes, just making these moves,
we add that on to just to add to it, that added on to, that was the year, every falconer I knew was like, man, y'all finding any score, one or two's like, yeah, I'm getting them, and it's getting them versus what they were doing last year is, they were pulling one a week, type, talking about, oh yeah, I'm chasing one. Man, I think the whole year I was going out 4 days a week, and I chased one. Now, granted, I was bulldozing, making. Maybe that's it. You can blame it on whatever, but the population went way down.
Yeah,
even what you've seen on the side of the road and in people's yards were. What normally has four squirrels in a yard would have one eating acorns. I mean, it was bad, but we can tell right now it's coming back pretty heavy. So this year's going to be good.
Yeah, as long as there's not a big freeze like that, it seems like the numbers with squirrels are always pretty consistent because their habitat for the most part stays consistent.
Yep.
And I mean, you don't see big swaths of woods being chopped down near as often as you do just plain flat land getting bulldozed and plowed over for the next subdivision, you know?
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot to be said for that. And, I'm sure you probably feel the same way. I mean, all these guys that don't like squirrel hawking and stuff like that, me and some friends, we always joke. It's just man, I hope these guys eventually come to like squirrel hawking and then hawking starlings and stuff, because eventually that's all we're probably going to have.
Well, and, it's kind of down to going, if that was all they had to do, that they'd probably have to like it, like what you're saying. If you have to, that's what you're going to do.
Yeah. Kind of at least come to a new appreciation for it anyway. But yeah, I mean, unfortunately, I don't know. I think for a lot of forms of falconry, it's going to just only keep getting rougher and more slim, and that's why I'm glad I like this anyway.
Here's getting kind of bad on that. I mean, you name it however you want to. We've got a lot of people moving in. If you split Texas down the middle, you could probably East Texas. This whole east side of Texas is where all the housing and the it's not just big swatches of land. but we have a lot of people moving in. Man, the market has been insane. New construction going, people mass exodus from other states coming in. At one point in time, our land was cheap enough that I couldn't even pretend to afford a piece of property right now. It's doubled, in price over 2 or 3 years.
It's like that a lot of places right now. Like the housing market bubbles, just like it just keeps getting. I've been waiting for it to pop for like ever. But I was going to ask you though. I mean, this is kind of a nice area, and not that I'm ever going to get a retire or anything, but I'm always on the lookout for prospective places that I could see myself living, and like especially digging squirrel hawking as much as I do. Like they're like, this is pretty. I mean, it's pretty neat. I mean, there's just enough for me to not like feel, like I'm in the middle of nowhere, but like at the same time.
Well, Tyler is kind of one of the bigger hubs between whatever Shreveport, Dallas, and Houston. We're kind of almost equal between them. It is kind of the hub. It's a big hospital town. Tyler, big hospital town. Kilgore, which is just right outside of it, big oil town. So there's a lot of I don't even know how to put it besides saying there's a lot of wealth here that allowed for a lot of trades, a lot of big land purchases, a lot of but what's happening right now, what I'm discussing is going, man, there's a place where we used to hunt that man, we can drive by there right now, and it is just 100 acres cleared to the ground, ready to be subdivided,
completely terraformed,
and it's everywhere. Like I see it slowing down. This year, I've kind of seen, just from the industry, I've seen it slowing down a little bit, but slow is a relative term, I guess you'd say.
Yeah, for sure. Well, yeah, as far as everything else goes, though, I mean, is this something? I mean, I guess the answer's already, kind of been given. As far as, I mean, do you see yourself? You don't really see yourself even remotely trying anything else for like ever?
Man, I doubt it. I really enjoy. I enjoy the woods. I stumbled upon this by doing. I'm a camper. I'm a hunter. I enjoy being in the thick piney woods. I enjoy the only place I like better than this is Caddo Lake, which is one of the biggest cypress forests in the world, which is essentially swamp, but it has a mystique and a mysteriousness to it that you may see Bigfoot right around the corner. There is no doubt that there might be something that, or a meth lab, I
was going to say, or hear a lot of banjos.
Yeah. You don't know what you might run into around here. Just laughing. I mean, we're right there on the edge of alligator territory, so you might come around the corner and see it's very rare, but it's not unheard of to come around the corner and see something extremely big that you're like, man, I should not be here. Or come up on a little nest that's chirping, which is, all the little babies, and you're going, well, mom's somewhere. I have got to call the bird down and get out of here.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
And we still got a lot of national forest lands around here that if you really want to just go hunt, man, you can get into some. I can load her up. I got a big camper on the truck that I can load her up. I can camp in the back of the truck, and I can go for 3 or 4 days and disappear and just hunt, do whatever I want to. So we still got access to some really neat that not everybody has.
Yeah.
I feel really, blessed to have some access to some stuff.
Cool. Yeah. I mean, I can't remember too. Did you say you have dogs, or you've used dogs, or?
Well, that was, man, I have not used dogs. I was looking for a dog this year. I think Todd Cole is the guy. He's got some really dark feists that, I was in touch with him, but he didn't have enough. I was just in line. I'm still going to try to hit him up. My wife gave me one ultimatum, and it was, if it's going to shed, it needs to be dark. So that kicked out the fox terriers, rat terriers, and I got to finding he breeds a kind of a Brennel looking, and they're from a really heavy hunting breed that you may not have to teach them to hunt. Where it's some of the other ones you have to kind of really work at it. So a dog's a big investment, not investment, but investment of time. And like I said, it may have been a blessing that with the idea that a baby may be on the way, that hopefully it was like, man, bird, baby, train a dog. I said, man, it may be a blessing that it didn't come to fruition, so.
Well, I mean, you could always go the black and tan, or like the red, wiener dog route too, man.
I'm worried about the wiener dog with the short legs around here. I've seen some of the even the Jags get wore out on the amount of running and briar work. So I don't know. My wife would be happy with a wiener dog.
Yeah, you'd be surprised. I mean, I can show you some pictures of what some of us in the Midwest and everything hunting and stuff too. I mean, if you're hunting a decent amount of woods too, though, then I mean, it might be another possible, just something for you to consider.
I haven't looked into them. Mine's just, it's always been Feist or Jack Russells. Mm-hmm. I grew up with rat terriers and fox terriers and Jack Russells, so it's always been one of them that I like. My wife's the only one that considers a wiener dog.
Yeah.
We were laughing the other day. I was calling him a Dachshund, and she's like, I think it's a Dachshund. I'm like, I don't know.
Well,
Dachshund.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to say, depending on who you ask, it's either Dachshund or Dash Hound or whatever.
This is East Texas, baby. It just take a lot of the accent off of it.
Put my own flavor on it.
Yeah,
just leave me alone.
Yeah, right on the verge of German at that point in time.
Yep. Yeah. Oh, that's funny, man. Well, I mean, so I guess we could talk some then about, like, just in the amount of time that you've been in and all this. I mean, what are some of the more favorite hunting experiences that you've had, as far as just some of the few stories and stuff? Man,
one of my favorites is so I got two of them. One of my, and it's kind of a learning experience. I'm very young in it, so my stories are probably very bland compared to some, but one of my favorites, my first actual catch that I feel makes you a falconer, is I took this bird out and started working her, and she was sitting about. I got into this area and was working this area pretty hard, and I knew it had squirrels in it, and she landed on a branch about 8 foot off the ground and just sat there. And I thought, man, okay, I'm gonna let her do whatever she's gonna do. Yeah, I finally backed up and said, I'm not gonna drag her. I'd been chastised by Gary about dragging the bird, like, just, hey, bird ain't moving, call the bird. And I think a holdover from that first bird was like, if you didn't keep him moving, you were one of us was going to chase the other. Mm-hmm. And she hadn't given me any indication that she was going to do anything. So I finally let her have her head. And I just kind of milled around, big circle around her, and she landed about 8 foot up and spent about 20 minutes on this branch. And I'm just making a walk around, and I'm thinking, what is she doing? And I finally, I step up on this big old stump, and I see her just fall off the tree and go, tink. I thought, what was that? And then she disappeared. Never seen her again. I'm thinking, well, I kind of just leisurely walk over there, and I'm thinking, what is going on? Well, there's a squirrel army crawling through the briars that she has been watching
this whole time,
and literally just fell 10 foot off the ground, 13 foot off the ground, just fell on this squirrel. And I'm thinking, well, that was the least dramatic catch that I've ever heard of, but
we refer to those as I was going to say we refer to those as the classic flop and drops.
Yeah, well, I thought, well, it wasn't as exciting, but man, it was exciting. The second one though, one of them second ones, she sure made it more of a. We were down in this big ravine, and I had made it up to the top of the hill, and she was about even with the top of all the tree line, and I stirred a squirrel up that didn't know she was anywhere in the nation, and it run up to about the top of that 40-foot tree and was just cooking across the top of them branches, and I'd seen her take off, and man, she grabbed him off the top of them trees, and literally it was picturesque, man. If I had a camera, it would have been pretty, because it had one of them roads like you'd see big trees hanging over the roads and everything. And I just remember seeing the bird had enough momentum and had got it by the head and had control. So she's just set her wings and she's soaring. And all I see is a little squirrel hang gliding under her. And I just keep seeing her. I'm thinking, man, she is never going to stop. 200-300 yards off, she finally just like turned off into the woods. And it's just a little hang gliding squirrel the whole time. I think, okay, well, that was the one that I was looking for. Went over and she'd already took care of everything. So it was a good time.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny, man. Like watching some of these chases and like, yeah, it's funny how there's such a dramatic difference between some types of pursuits and, some endings are almost so like anticlimactic that you kind of almost wish that the bird hadn't have caught it just so you could have, seen a lot more action.
Yeah.
But in the end, I mean, it's something in the bag, I guess.
Hey, when I went out, we didn't catch anything. I went out 2 days ago and I didn't catch anything, but man, leaves haven't dropped here yet, but man, it was, I watched her do some stuff that I'm like, oh, we're going to have a good season when the leaves fall. But I watched her climb up and she's hanging off the bottom of a nest, pulling and tearing, and finally got up and it takes off out of the nest. She chased it for a while. And finally the last thing, this squirrel run across everything and runs down into a knot hole. And she did one of them like, Michael Jordan's, man, he run down in the hole and that bird grabbed it right at the end and was just hanging upside down by the knot. It looked like she tried to make a slam dunk and everything. Mm-hmm. It was over, but I was thinking, well, that was a good chase. I don't have to clean up a mess. And then we carried on and man, she chased some more. So I think we're going to have a good year. So
yeah, I know one of the most fun things I've seen is whenever a bird kind of keys in and is just locked in on, one of those dead branch holes, and you can barely see just the tip of a squirrel dart up and out and then back in, and that bird's really just keying in on it. And then all of a sudden you see the bird just, just swoop down real quick on that branch. And then all of a sudden you see a hawk foot in a hole, and it's like playing tug of war, like on the inside of that with the squirrel. And then all of a sudden you see a squirrel fall real quick and almost hit you on the way down. And, those kind of things are, I think, the most fun types of pursuits for sure.
Yeah. But are we going to get this? Like, is she going to make it? Them shoestring catches. Yeah. Love them. Just back to that first bird. I mean, even down to, I hunt a golf course and just the craziness of him. I hunt a golf course and I've watched that bird. I was standing kind of against the fence on the golf course, and I looked over and I seen a little dirt flick out of a molehill, and out of nowhere I hear the bells take off, and he slams this molehill and then gets in there like a Dachshund or something. Man, he's in there digging, trying to dig this mole out of this molehill. I mean, I'm like, man, this bird is just up for anything. If I could find a squirrel, and when I would find the squirrel, man, he'd chase anything. Like, he'd have been horrible on dogs. I mean, he'd have, if it looked like he could put it in his mouth, he'd probably try to eat it. He had no qualms, man.
Well, I mean, the only bad side or the only bad thing about that spot that you got, though, I mean, it's not the right bird for that. You need a goshawk for a golf course.
Yeah,
dude.
no, man. Yeah, no lie. That bird was bad. But we got it's a pretty neat place because it's smashed between a big lake and a golf course, and it's about 60 acres of woods shoved in. And I'm like, man, they get to do whatever they want to on the golf course and then come back in, and we're kind of hunting their home turf. So it's pretty nice.
That's funny, man. Well, you have any other things that come to mind as far as experiences that have been kind of noteworthy for you?
No, not really. I mean, just I'm glad that I run into who I did when I did. Gary's been again, luck plays a part. God plays a part in it, man. Gary is probably one of my favorite guys to hang out with. We can have some really interesting conversations on squirrels, on hunting. He's always got an opinion. I mean, you don't. He's always got an opinion, and typically, if he's shooting from the hip, his opinion's right. Like, I've had him, how you need to do X, Y, Z, and I'm like, how do you know this? And it's just years of experience. It's just. But Gary, he's I got lucky, luckier than most to find somebody that I feel like I've advanced further than I need to personally in my hunting due to having such a good coach, so it's that, I've gotten to do some stuff that nobody would get to do, man. We went ridge trapping for him, a bird up in Wisconsin with Mr. Noble's, Noble Bells, which was just to sit with them and listen to them have conversations. I mean, you're talking combined experience of, 80 to 100, it's like both of them been doing it forever.
Sure.
And just hear stories, man. If you could, you'd have to delete most of them if you recorded it, but they're great guys. Falconry community has been, it's a different community. It's not a sport like there are the one-offs, but compared to other communities you can be involved in, we're a good community that likes to help each other. Like even this podcast, I mean, I put the word out about a week prior to go. I asked, I think 4 people if they'd be interested, and all 4 said, yeah, I'll do it. If that's what needs to be done. There was no like, what's it in it for me or what? It was just like, yeah, I'm fine with that. And most of them didn't even know really what I was asking for,
Yeah.
So it just, the community's great. So
Yeah.
luck plays a big part in it,
I feel you, man. It's, I mean, there's, the fact of the matter is there's always black sheep in every kind of community or, sport or whatever the case is. But no, you're right. And I've always been very appreciative and humbled by the amount of hospitality and just that there's something about the falconry community that as a whole, the vast majority, they're always so, for the most part, welcoming to things that are going to contribute back and, preserve and kind of, further just the heritage of the sport and everything else.
You would in such a, lack of a better term, elite, the fact that you have jumped through so many hoops to do what you're doing and to do it well, you would expect a lot more arrogance. Now, I ain't saying there's not arrogant people out there. I'm just going, you would expect a lot more arrogance, a lot more, bickering and chastising. And I rarely, it's very much I hate to put it, but like an introvert sport, like where it's like, do what you do. I laugh. I enjoy it can be a lonely sport. Everybody wants to go right up until it's time to go. And then it's like, well, it's just me and the bird again.
Yeah.
Even, you can have friends that are like, yeah, oh yeah. I never faulted Gary for, not calling me in the first ones. It's like, yeah, everybody wants to go. Everybody wants to know about it right up until, the work begins, so I think that may be what allows that arrogance to really dissipate. The fact that it's just an interesting enough sport. And when we as falconers get together and are able to even just discuss what we're doing, typically you don't get to talk to somebody. You're not having the same conversation that you have anytime anybody finds out you're a falconer. It's always the exact same conversation. It's the man. So it brings it back to you, the normal stuff, but to have somebody really understands what takes place, it's exciting.
Yeah. I mean, there's not very many of us that do it. And whenever you're around other people that do it, and, you have that instant, like the camaraderie aspect of it as far as that goes. And yeah, I mean, there's always going to be, falconers by kind of definition, for the most part, are kind of, introverted, kind of somewhat,
well, they're problem solvers. They like to work through stuff.
Yeah. We can be kind of an awkward bunch, but for the most part, I think, yeah, there's not very many, whenever there's not very many people in the world that do the same thing that you do, then yeah, there's that instant, I don't know, it doesn't matter what X and X person does, for a living or this, that, or the other, you've always got that one common denominator that it doesn't matter what the background is, you can always at least have some degree of a conversation. But yeah, man, it's been cool. And I'm, like I said, I'm glad that, this has been another, cool stop on the journey so far. And, before we kind of wrap this up, go ahead and, as you know by now, since you listen and everything, I'd like to get that kind of piece of advice from you, or what you think is important to share for current and future generations. And we can probably, wrap this up, man.
Man, I can only go with the limited experience I've got and what I'm working with right now, that I have to, the bird is always hunting, and be aware of that bird is always on the hunt. It's driven by that. And I am still having to work through going, that bird is sitting still. I am further away. That bird has not moved up. And then turning around and going, you almost have to make a decision. Do you call the bird to move up, or do you watch and see what happens? And every time, usually it takes me being tired. We've made a big round. I've done this a few times, and then I'm like, hell with it. We're going to see what she does. And I have yet to have her disappoint. She is typically watching the squirrel and trying to figure out, she has seen something, and she is making a decision between hunting me or hunting that animal. And she has yet to disappoint. If I give her head, she goes after whatever it is within. And the best thing to do when you get that is to go, what direction is she looking? I'm going to go get out in front of her. I am going to try to push whatever it is around to where she can see it. And it takes you a while to realize that she is always hunting. She's always, what else have they got to do? They're not thinking about getting home and crocheting. They're not, it literally, it's, can I eat that? All right, it's nap time. There's, or can that kill me? And once they get that through, it's like, they ain't really scared of much. It's got to be bad to be scared of. So it's usually, can I eat that? Mm-hmm. And is it more important to me than what's over here? He's always going to be there. So that'd be the biggest piece of advice I've got as of right now, is just, if she stops, investigate what she's stopping for.
Sure.
And it's something that I'm still working through. I almost have to remind myself daily to move. I know it's probably a almost obvious to a bunch of people, but right now in my walk, it's what I'm doing. So
yeah, and for the most part, I think it it looks fairly similar from bird to bird, but every bird is a little different, and just the slight variation sometimes of those mannerisms. And you learn, I mean, some birds just kind of suck a little bit at following and staying right on you, and some are almost too good at it. And then like learning the subtle differences between like what that bird's body language is when it is locked up on something versus not, and everything else. Yeah, it can be, I mean, it can be a tough thing to figure out from bird to bird sometimes, but
yeah. And that's it. It's just, I've had more times that when I don't do something takes place. Mm-hmm. I'm just taking her for a walk.
Well, yeah, and especially for a brand new falconer, it's when you're so nervous about losing a bird for the first time or something like that, you just have to take a step back and just remember, like, well, you haven't lost this bird yet.
Yeah.
And like, you know, there's a point in time where you're just like, look, unless something really crazy happens, this bird's not going to just fly away, you know, like, so
if you did your math right.
Yeah. You just have to relax a little bit and just, you know, let the cards fall as they may when it comes to certain things. And yeah, I mean, some people just are so nervous, you know.
What blows my mind is just, and again, luck, you know, to be involved with, you know, Gary discusses, he talks about having a heart attack, you know, about 4 or 5 years ago. And the fact that he didn't even run telemetry, bells only up, and it's just to go, there are people out there that are flying like nothing. Mm-hmm. And I'm going, or like, I think he discussed flying deaf, and it's going, man, I got all my senses and telemetry. You know, well, I'm running a form of telemetry, but just cool. I can find my first bird taught me a lot of things. I finally was like, it was late one evening in that same golf course. I was on the other side of the lake, and man, just talking to Gary, I said, man, I am going to let that bird run. Like, if it runs, I'll find, you know, I had about 30 minutes to dark, and I was like, well, how far can it go that I can't go find it? And man, I literally, it used to be an old park, and man, that bird took off across the lake, and I stood there on a park bench with my little, it's not telemetry, it's just a tracker like you would with old dogs. You know, it tells you it's that way. And I literally watched that bird for the next 30 minutes go up and down that golf course from one end to the other, to the back and forth. And then, man, I felt, I was driving an old beat up truck with an old camper on it at the time, and I'm running through a multi-million-dollar like community in my beat up truck with a headlamp on, and I'm semi trying to find my bird in their backyards, and having to go. I finally got lucky, and instead of being in the backyard, it was up by the cart shed like area, and I had to leave her overnight, you know, to get her down. The next morning I show up bright and early, you know, before daylight, and I scare the heck out of the golf cart kid. He's got ear pods in, and I just didn't want him to freak out. So I'm trying to get his attention, and finally I got his attention. He's like, "What?" You know, I said, "Well, I just want you to know I'm not a mass murderer or anything. I'm literally here to get my bird. Don't shoot." Like, finally pulled him down. So.
Yeah. It's funny the situations you run into, man. It really is. I mean, I've had situations like that too, you know, just standard beeping, you know, telemetry, hanging a receiver out the window and stuff, you know, so-and-so just like, what are you doing? Yeah.
I've debated on getting that, I've been debating on getting one that, but I just ain't done it yet.
Yeah. Well,
so
you'll make the plunge eventually.
I'm slowly working there.
Yeah.
I'm slowly working it up to it. So we'll see.
It's all good, man. Well, unless you have anything else you want to add or share, man, we can probably go ahead and wrap this up and, you know, kind of on to the next type of thing.
No, that's about it, man. I really do appreciate y'all coming down. You know, I enjoy y'all's stuff. I enjoy what you do. You know, keep doing it, man, and God bless.
Well, I appreciate you, man. And, hopefully we'll be able to keep on keeping on. And yeah, I mean, my goals, as you know, are pretty lofty. So I hope we can continue to keep marking, boxes off the bucket list, so to speak. And yeah, man, like I said, thanks again for the support, and thanks again for reaching out and helping make this happen, man.
Yeah, if you're ever back in the neighborhood, you know where to come.
Oh, I'd love to make it down to go hawking and put a pin drops in all your spots and stuff.
Yeah, don't worry about that. Just take me with you.
Yeah. Awesome, man.
Yeah, talk to you later.
All right.